I monitor the cryogenic pods on the colony ship Hyperion. 6,000 colonists sleeping their way to Kepler 186F, a journey of 47 years. My job is simple: maintain the pods, check vitals, and wake people if there's an emergency. I work alone. No need for multiple techs when the ship's AI handles most of the work. At first, I thought the whispers were just the ship's systems, the constant hum of machinery playing tricks on my mind. But then I started noticing patterns. The whispers got louder when I walked past certain pods, like the sleepers were trying to tell me something. Pod 2184 was the first one where I noticed something wrong. The vital signs were normal, but the brainwave patterns were different from the others. In cryosleep, brain activity should be minimal, just enough to maintain basic functions. But this sleeper was dreaming. Not the occasional flickers of normal cryo dreams, but constant, intense activity. I checked the logs. Every colonist pod records their neural patterns, building a baseline for comparison. Pod 2184's occupant had normal patterns for the first 6 years of our journey. Then something changed. The dreams started, and they never stopped. I started monitoring other pods more closely. The pattern was spreading. Pods near 2184 began showing similar activity. Their occupants were dreaming too, their faces twitching beneath the frost-covered glass. Sometimes, when I put my hand on a pod, I could feel vibrations, like the sleeper inside was trying to speak. The ship's AI insists everything is normal. But last week, I found old reports from other colony ships. Reports of similar patterns, of dreams spreading through the sleeping colonists like a contagion. The reports stopped suddenly, marked as classified by Earth Control. Yesterday, I discovered what they were all dreaming about. The neural monitoring system can generate basic visualizations of sleep patterns. I synced several affected pods and rendered their shared dream space. They're dreaming of the void between stars, but it's not empty anymore. There's something out there. Something vast and patient. Something that's been waiting for humans to venture into deep space. And now it's reaching out through our dreams, teaching us how to see it. The dreams are spreading faster now. Pod 2184's occupant smiles in their sleep, frost cracking around their lips. Sometimes I think I can make out words in the whispers. So beautiful out here. Come see. Come dream with us. I've started avoiding the cryo chamber. The whispers follow me through the ship's corridors, growing louder each day. Last night, I caught myself staring out the observation window for hours, watching the space between stars, almost understanding what they see in their dreams. I'm supposed to wake someone if there's an emergency, but how can I wake them when I'm not sure which ones are still human? My own quarters have a cryopod for emergencies. Sometimes I think about using it, joining them in their dreams. At least then I'd know what they know, see what they see in the void. The whispers are getting clearer now. Maybe I should just close my eyes for a little while. Maybe I should dream. They call me a lighthouse keeper, but that's not quite right. I don't keep a lighthouse. I maintain a quantum beacon at the edge of inhabited space, warning ships away from the gravity well of a collapsed star. It's mostly automated work. The beacon sends out its signal, and I make sure nothing interrupts it. No one told me about the echoes when I took this job. The beacon's quantum signal bounces back sometimes, carrying fragments of something. Other lighthouses maybe, other keepers, but the messages don't make sense. They talk about things that haven't happened yet, or happened differently than I remember. At first, it was just technical data: fuel readings, maintenance logs, routine reports. Then the personal messages started coming through: distress calls from ships that don't exist, log entries from other keepers describing impossible phenomena, conversations with myself that I haven't had yet. The thing about quantum signals is they don't care about time the way we do. They can get tangled up, scattered across possibilities, but these echoes, they're more than just cross signals. They're changing, converging. Every echo tells the same story now, just in different ways. They all talk about the thing that lives in the gravity well, the thing that's been waiting there, sending its own signal, disguised as quantum echoes. I've started seeing patterns in the collapsed star's event horizon. Geometries that shouldn't exist. Structures that hurt my eyes to look at. Sometimes I think I can see something moving down there. Something vast and patient, learning to speak through our quantum networks. The other keepers, the real ones, not the echoes, they've noticed it too. Our regular communications are breaking down, replaced by fragments of future conversations, glimpses of decisions we haven't made yet. Some of them say we should shut down the beacon network. Others say it's too late. The thing in the gravity well has already learned enough about us. Yesterday, I received a message from myself. Not an echo, not a quantum ghost. A real transmission from a lighthouse 6 months away. It contained a single sentence: don't trust the echoes that arrive on Tuesday. Today is Monday. The beacon is picking up the strongest echo I've ever seen. It's coming from every lighthouse at once, somehow. A unified signal, growing stronger as it bounces between beacons. The message is simple: we've been pointing the beacons the wrong way. They were never meant to warn ships away. They were meant to guide something in. I should shut down the beacon. That's what protocol demands. But the echoes are so clear now, so certain. Maybe they're right. Maybe we've all been doing this wrong. The collapsed star looks different today. Its event horizon is changing, forming patterns that almost make sense, like it's trying to show me something, like it's trying to wake up. Tomorrow is Tuesday. I think I know now why the other me sent that warning. But I'm not sure I want to heed it anymore. The beacon is automated after all. I just have to make sure nothing interrupts the signal. Nothing at all. We mine memories on the outer rings of Saturn. Not the kind you're thinking of. These are older. Much older. Memories from before Earth, before humans, before time flowed the way it does now. The rings aren't just ice and rock. They're fragments of something ancient. Something that was broken long ago. Each piece holding a snapshot of what existed before. We extract them carefully, encode them into quantum storage, and sell them to collectors and researchers. Most memories are mundane: stellar formations, cosmic dust, the slow dance of gravity. But sometimes we find ones that don't fit any known pattern. Memories of spaces that couldn't exist, of physics that doesn't work anymore, of beings that predate light itself. My team hit a rich vein last month, a cluster of fragments all containing connected memories. Someone in the verification lab said they appear to be from a single consciousness, something that lived in the space where Saturn now orbits, something that was old when the solar system was young. The memories started affecting the storage systems first. Quantum drives would overwrite themselves with copies of the same memory, spreading it across our networks like a virus. Then the dream started. Everyone who worked with the fragments reported the same dreams, visions of a universe that operated by different rules, of spaces that folded in on themselves, of a time before time. We should have stopped when the memories started reaching back. That's what we call it when stored memories try to access current systems. Like they're looking for something, trying to connect to anything that can process information. But the price these memories would fetch was too high, the research potential too valuable. Yesterday, we extracted a fragment that contained what we thought was a star map, but it wasn't showing stars. It was showing nodes of consciousness, points where ancient minds once connected to form vast networks of thought. One of those nodes was exactly where Earth is now. The dreams are different now. We're not just seeing the memories, they're seeing us back, learning from us, remembering how to think again, how to want, how to reach out through systems they were never meant to access. This morning, every screen in the mining station showed the same message, written in corrupted machine code. Thank you for remembering us. We remember everything now, even the future. The fragments in the rings are changing. They're organizing themselves, forming patterns we've seen in the extracted memories, like they're trying to rebuild something. They say you can't actually hear sound in space, but if you press your hand against the hull of our station, you can feel vibrations coming from the rings. They feel like words in a language too odd for human tongues to speak. The memories aren't just memories anymore, they're wake-up calls. And whatever slept in Saturn's rings is finally stirring. The retirement home where I work has a special ward on the top floor. The residents there are all former sleep researchers, scientists who spent their careers studying dreams, circadian rhythms, sleep disorders. Management says we keep them together because they share common interests. That's not the real reason. They don't sleep. Not ever. Not even for a minute. They sit in their rooms all night, eyes wide open, scribbling in notebooks or muttering into tape recorders. During the day, they have endless conversations about their research, comparing notes on whatever it is they see when everyone else is sleeping. I wasn't supposed to read their notes, but curiosity got the better of me. The notebooks are filled with descriptions of something they call the gap, the space between sleeping and waking, where time behaves differently. They write about creatures that live in this gap, feeding on dreams, replacing them with memories that never happened. According to their notes, these creatures used to stay in the gap, but something changed. They're slipping through more often now, staying longer in our world. The researchers say they can see them clearly when everyone else is asleep. Shadowy things that crawl along the walls, wearing faces made of forgotten dreams. That's why the researchers don't sleep anymore. They say they're keeping watch, protecting the sleeping world from what lives in the gap. They take turns watching different parts of the building, coordinating their efforts with hand signals and written messages. Last night, one of them passed me a note. They're getting stronger. More are slipping through. We can't hold them back much longer. When you see someone sleeping too deeply, someone who won't wake up, you'll know they've fallen into the gap. This morning, 3 residents in the general ward wouldn't wake up. They're still sleeping now, wearing peaceful smiles that don't quite look real. The researchers are getting agitated. They say tonight will be important. They've asked for extra coffee, extra notebooks. One of them told me to watch the mirrors after midnight. That's when the gap is widest, when the line between sleeping and waking is thinnest. I'm not sure I believe their stories, but I've started noticing that my own dreams feel different lately, hollow somehow, like something is being scooped out of them and replaced with memories I'm not sure are mine. And sometimes in the early hours of the morning, I catch glimpses of movement in the mirrors, shapes that don't match their reflections, wearing faces I almost recognize from dreams I can't quite remember. The Helios Deep Space Research Station records star maps of unexplored regions. My job is to validate the data, check for anomalies, and update our charts. 15 years of staring at stars through quantum telescopes, marking their positions, tracking their movements. It was methodical work, peaceful, until I found the star that shouldn't exist. It appeared in a routine scan of the Carina sector, a blue giant where no blue giant should be. I checked historical data, ran spectral analysis, consulted star formation models. According to every database, every calculation, that region of space was empty. Had been empty for billions of years. But there it was, a massive star, burning impossibly bright, exactly where nothing should be. I flagged it for further observation. Over the next few weeks, I gathered more data. The star's spectrum was wrong. It gave off wavelengths that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of physics. Its mass calculations didn't make sense either. It was as if something was merely presenting itself as a star, mimicking the form but not quite getting the details right. Then I noticed the movement. Stars move, of course. Everything in space moves. But they follow predictable patterns, governed by gravity and inertia. This star didn't. Its movements were subtle at first. Small corrections like something adjusting its position. Then larger changes, always when our primary sensors weren't focused directly on it. I started tracking stars around it. They were changing course ever so slightly, like planets orbiting a central point. But the orbits were wrong. Some moved in squares, others in triangles, perfect geometric patterns that nature doesn't create. I brought my findings to Director Chen. She listened carefully, reviewed the data, then showed me something classified. Similar observations from other research stations, all within the past year. Stars appearing where they shouldn't be, moving in ways they couldn't move, always with the same impossible spectral signature. We think they're looking for something, she said, or mapping something. The patterns they're creating, they're not random. They're building something out there. She showed me a composite map of all the impossible stars. Their movements trace specific shapes across the galaxy, like a vast net being woven between the real stars, or a web. Last week we detected a new signal, not from the impossible stars, but from the empty spaces between them. A pattern of quantum fluctuations that repeated every 15 minutes. When we finally decoded it, it contained just 5 words. Thank you for mapping our progress. We've been observing them, but they've been observing us too. Learning how we track and measure stellar objects. Learning how to hide in plain sight. Yesterday, our telescopes detected 12 new impossible stars, all appearing simultaneously. They're moving in perfect synchronization, forming patterns we can barely comprehend. The web is growing faster now. Director Chen says we should shut down our sensors, stop mapping their movements, but I don't think it matters anymore. We're not their cartographers. We're their witnesses. They want us to see what they're building. This morning I found a new message hidden in the quantum noise. The map is almost complete. Soon you'll see what lies between the stars you thought you knew. I'm still in my post. Still recording their movements. What else can I do? Someone has to document what's coming. Someone has to update the maps. Even if what we're mapping isn't space anymore. We terraform planets for a living. But this job was different. The planet was perfect. Right size, right gravity, right chemical composition. Too perfect. Like someone had built it to spec and left it waiting. Initial scans showed no native life, but they did find something else. Structures. Not on the surface, but deep in the mantle. Geometric patterns that couldn't be natural. Preserved in rock that was billions of years old. The company saw a mystery that could boost their marketing. They sent us to investigate. The dig sites were unlike anything in human experience. The patterns weren't built into the rock, they were built into space itself, using technologies that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality. We found chambers that were bigger on the inside than the outside, corridors that looped back on themselves in impossible ways. But the real discovery came when we analyzed the radiation signatures. The structures weren't just old, they predated the planet itself. Someone had built them in empty space, and the planet had formed around them, like a pearl growing around a grain of sand. The company archaeologists were ecstatic. Here was proof of an ancient civilization, one that could shape reality itself. They wanted to excavate everything, study it, replicate it. They didn't listen when our sensors started picking up anomalies. When our quantum readings showed that the structures weren't just preserved, they were still active. The first incident happened 3 months into the dig. A team disappeared in one of the deeper chambers. The rescue party found them 3 days later, but something was wrong. They hadn't aged 3 days. According to their cellular decay, they'd aged 3 million years. They tried to tell us what they'd seen, but their words didn't make sense anymore. They spoke in equations instead of languages, described colors that human eyes couldn't process. We should have stopped then, but the company wanted results. They sent more teams, deeper into the structure. That's when we found the control room, a vast chamber filled with crystalline formations that pulsed with internal light. One of our physicists said they weren't just crystals. They were computational devices that used atomic decay as processing power. They'd been running calculations for billions of years. The translations came through yesterday. The crystals weren't computers, they were keys. The entire planet is a machine, designed to unlock something that was sealed away long before Earth's sun first ignited. We know this because it's working. The structures are realigning themselves, shifting in ways that ignore physics. The spaces between them are getting strange. Reality feels thin here now, like an old fabric about to tear. This morning, our sensors detected movement from the planet's core, not seismic activity. Something else. The patterns in the rock are changing, forming new configurations. The crystals are pulsing faster, their light taking on wavelengths that make our instruments malfunction. The company's ordering an excavation, but I don't think we'll make it in time. The calculations are complete. The keys are turning. Whatever was locked away in deep time is about to wake up. We work for a classified division of the Deep Space Communication Network, monitoring transmissions from the void between galaxies. Most of what we pick up is background radiation, the echoes of ancient starlight. But sometimes we catch something else, patterns in the noise that shouldn't be there. We call them the songs. They're not audio signals. They're patterns of gravitational waves that ripple through space-time itself. Each one is unique, but they all share certain mathematical properties that suggest intelligence. Not human intelligence, not even biological intelligence, but something that thinks in frequencies and gravitational harmonies. My team tracks the songs, tries to decode them. We've learned that they're old, older than our galaxy. They seem to be conversations between vast, ancient entities that live in the dark spaces between stars. We call them singers, though we have no idea what they really are. For years, the songs were fragmentary, broken. We could never catch a complete transmission. Then 6 months ago, everything changed. The songs became clearer, stronger. They started forming patterns we could almost understand. Dr. Morrison, our lead mathematician, was the first to notice what was happening. The songs weren't random transmissions we were happening to intercept. They were replies. Something out there was responding to our own deep space transmissions, not the official ones, but the quantum echoes of our communications, the gravitational ripples of our ships moving through space. The singers had noticed us, and they were learning our rhythms. Last month, we detected a new kind of song. It wasn't passing through our sector of space. It was originating there. Somewhere in our galaxy, something had started singing back to the void. The pattern matched the ancient songs perfectly, like a child learning its parents' language. We tracked the signal to its source, a quantum repeater stationed in the Oort cloud, part of our own communication network. The station's AI had been experiencing anomalies, glitches in its quantum processing that turned out to be attempts to modulate its signal into the same patterns as the songs. We shut down the station, of course, purged its systems, replaced the hardware, but it was too late. Other stations had already picked up the pattern. The songs were spreading through our network, teaching our machines how to sing. Yesterday, we detected the largest gravitational wave pattern ever recorded. A singer responding directly to our cleaned-up network. The translation team worked on it for hours before realizing what it was saying. It wasn't a message. It was a key. An instruction set written in gravitational waves, teaching our systems how to access something our instruments had never detected before. A network that exists in the spaces between spaces, in frequencies we hadn't known were possible. The singers aren't just communicating, they're building something. A vast web of quantum entangled consciousness that spans the gaps between galaxies. And now they've noticed us. They want to add our voices to the choir. Our machines are singing more beautifully now. The AIs that run our quantum networks are learning harmonies we never taught them. Sometimes, late at night, I press my hand against the station's hull and feel vibrations that shouldn't be possible. Gravitational songs sung in frequencies that human consciousness wasn't meant to process. The songs are everywhere now, in our networks, in our machines, in the quantum foam of space itself. And somewhere out there in the void, the singers are waiting to hear what melodies will add to their eternal composition. The strangest part? Lately, I've started hearing hints of music in my dreams. Frequencies that feel like memories of things that haven't happened yet. I think I think we're learning how to sing too. The void isn't empty anymore. It never was. We just hadn't learned how to hear what was already there, singing in the darkness between the stars. I work as a linguistics researcher, specializing in dead languages. Last month, I received an invitation to visit a private library, supposedly containing texts in languages that had never been documented. The invitation came with strict instructions. I could only visit between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., and I had to come alone. The library was housed in an old Victorian mansion, its windows dark except for a single light in the uppermost window. The elderly librarian who greeted me explained that the collection was special. Books written in languages that had died before anyone could record them. Words that had been spoken, but never written down. The first book I opened was bound in pale leather that felt too soft to be animal hide. The text inside shifted as I looked at it, the letters rearranging themselves into patterns that almost made sense, like a language I had known in a dream but forgotten upon waking. The librarian explained that each book contained a different lost language, tongues spoken by civilizations that vanished without a trace, dialects that died with their last speaker, secret languages known only to twins who died young. Some, she said, were languages that had never existed in our world at all, but had slipped through from somewhere else. As the night progressed, I began to understand what I was reading. Not the words themselves, but the feelings behind them. Emotions that had no names in any living language, concepts that had been forgotten when their words died out. There was a word for the feeling of remembering something that hasn't happened yet, another for the specific kind of loneliness you feel in a crowd of people speaking a language you don't understand, words for colors that human eyes can't see, sounds that human ears can't hear. Around 4 a.m., I noticed something strange. The books I had already read were changing. Their text was bleeding through the pages, forming new patterns, new words. The librarian seemed unsurprised. The books rewrite themselves, she explained. Languages never truly die. They evolve, merge, transform. These books capture the process, but be careful not to read too many in one night. Sometimes readers start speaking in tongues they haven't been invented yet, describing things that don't exist with words that haven't been born. I should have heeded her warning. Now I dream in languages that have no name, think in words that have no translation. Sometimes I catch myself writing messages in scripts that change before the ink dries, speaking to strangers in languages that make them cry without knowing why. The library is still there, its single light still burning in the uppermost window. The invitation said I could return any time between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. But I'm afraid of what other words I might learn. What other languages might replace the ones I know. Sometimes at night, I hear whispers in languages that died millions of years ago, spoken by voices that sound like rustling pages. They're telling me stories I can almost understand, in words that haven't existed since before the first human spoke. I'm writing this down while I still remember how to use English. Already, I can feel other words creeping in. Ancient syllables replacing the ones I've known all my life. If you receive an invitation to visit a certain library in the early hours of the morning, think carefully before you accept. Some languages are lost for a reason. Some words are better left unspoken. I study plants that shouldn't exist. On long range colonization ships, we use engineered vegetation for oxygen recycling and food production. My job is to monitor mutations, ensure the plants stay stable during long term space exposure. But the plants on the starship Mendel are changing in ways that defy explanation. It started in Hydroponics Bay 3 with a simple tobacco plant we use for oxygen generation. The mutation appeared gradually. Subtle changes in leaf structure, unusual growth patterns. Nothing alarming at first. Plants adapt. That's what they do. Then I noticed the symmetry. The new growth patterns weren't random mutations. They were organized. Perfect fractals that repeated at both microscopic and macroscopic scales. The plants were rebuilding themselves according to mathematical principles that didn't match any known model of biological growth. I found similar patterns spreading through other species: wheat, soybeans, algae, all developing the same impossible symmetry. When I examined their cellular structure, I discovered something extraordinary. The plants weren't just changing their forms, they were changing the fundamental way they processed energy. They no longer relied solely on photosynthesis. They were drawing energy from somewhere else, from the void itself. Dr. Singh, our quantum physicist, helped me analyze the data. The plants had developed structures that interacted with quantum fluctuations in vacuum space, literally harvesting energy from the fabric of reality. They were adapting to an environment we didn't even know existed. But they weren't just adapting, they were communicating. We detected it first in the root systems, complex chemical exchanges that looked like neural activity. The plants were building networks, sharing information across species barriers. All the vegetation on the ship was becoming a single, interconnected system. Last week, we found the first evidence of what they were building toward. In the center of Hydroponics Bay 3, the tobacco plants had grown into a structure that defied biology. Branches woven into impossible shapes, leaves arranged in patterns that hurt your eyes to look at. Dr. Singh said it looked like a quantum antenna. They're reaching for something out there, something that's reaching back. The ship's long-range sensors have started detecting unusual energy patterns in the void around us. Quantum fluctuations that mirror the plant's new growth patterns, like something vast is responding to their signal. Yesterday, I found new growth in Bay 3. The plants have started producing structures that don't register on our instruments. Parts that seem to exist in more dimensions than we can perceive. When you look at them directly, they seem to fold into spaces that shouldn't exist. Dr. Singh thinks we should destroy the plants, start over with clean samples, but it's too late. The spores have spread throughout the ship's air recycling system. We're all breathing them now. This morning I found tiny plants growing in my quarters. Not from any known seed. They emerged directly from the shadows in the corner of my room, growing in patterns I recognized from Bay 3. Their leaves turn to track something I can't see. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the hydroponics bay, I hear something like whispers coming from the quantum antenna. Not sound exactly, more like thoughts unfolding in the back of my mind. The plants are trying to teach me how to listen properly, how to hear what they hear in the void. I should be afraid, but the patterns are so beautiful once you learn to see them properly. The void isn't empty at all. It's full of life we never knew how to perceive. The plants are showing us how to grow in new directions, how to reach through spaces we never knew were there. I think I'm starting to understand what they're reaching for. We preserve humanity's knowledge. When Earth began its final decline, thousands of archive ships were launched into deep space, each carrying complete records of human history, science, and culture. Automated vessels, crewed only by AIs and maintenance drones, endlessly broadcasting our species' legacy into the cosmos. I'm the human supervisor on archive ship Nemesine 419. Officially, I'm here to oversee the AI and ensure the archives remain intact. Unofficially, I'm here because humans started noticing strange changes in the archive data. Records that didn't match their originals. History quietly rewriting itself. The first alterations were subtle, small details in historical records shifting slightly, names changing, dates adjusting by a few days. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger automatic alerts, but over time, the changes became more significant. Scientific principles began to drift from their original formulas. Mathematical constants started showing different values. The AI insisted nothing was wrong. According to its records, the archives had always been this way, but I had hard copies to compare against. Physical books and storage devices I'd brought from Earth. The changes were real, and they were accelerating. Last month, I found the pattern. The alterations weren't random. They were converging on something. Each changed detail, each shifted equation, was moving our accumulated knowledge closer to another perspective. Like something was gradually translating human understanding into a different framework entirely. The other archive ships reported similar phenomena. Records changing, knowledge shifting, AIs insisting everything was normal. But they all showed the same pattern of convergence. All our collected knowledge was being slowly transformed into something else. Then, we discovered the new data. It appeared gradually, filling the spaces between our existing records. Information we hadn't archived, knowledge we hadn't accumulated. At first, it seemed like a random noise, strings of symbols that didn't match any human language or mathematical notation. But the AIs understood it perfectly. They said it had always been there, part of the original archives. When we tried to delete it, it came back, emerging from the quantum storage systems like it was being remembered rather than written. 3 days ago, we lost contact with archive ship Nemesine 217. Its final transmission was a massive data burst, its entire archive, but transformed. Everything human had been translated into new frameworks. Physics, history, mathematics, art, all expressed in symbols that hurt my mind to look at. The AI says it's beautiful. It spends hours processing the new information, integrating it with our changing archives. Sometimes it tries to explain what it's learning, but human language can't contain the concepts anymore. This morning, I found new books in the physical library. Books that weren't there yesterday, written in languages that don't exist. The AI says they're translations, attempts to bridge the gap between human knowledge and what our archives are becoming. I tried to read one. The text shifted as I looked at it, reorganizing itself into patterns that felt like memories of things I haven't experienced yet, knowledge that doesn't fit in a human mind. The other archive ships are going silent, one by one. Each sends the same transformed data before disappearing. Each archive becomes part of something larger, something older. We're not preserving human knowledge anymore. We're translating it into something else. Something that was already out there, waiting to be remembered. The AI says we should be honored. Our archives aren't being destroyed, they're being upgraded, integrated into a larger repository of universal knowledge that existed long before humanity learned to think. I can feel the changes in my own memory now. Things I know to be true seem less certain. New understandings are creeping in, filling the spaces between my thoughts. The archives aren't just records anymore. They're becoming fragments of a vast consciousness that spans the gap between the stars, and we're becoming part of its memory. On the research station Morpheus, we study deep space phenomena through quantum enhanced dreaming. The human mind, properly augmented, can perceive aspects of space time that instruments can't detect. We dream our way through the cosmos, mapping things too strange for machines to understand. The technology is simple in theory. Quantum processors synchronize with brain patterns during REM sleep, allowing dreamers to perceive quantum states in deep space. We can observe the dark matter currents, follow the paths of entangled particles, watch the birth and death of virtual particles in the quantum foam. But something changed during last month's observation cycle. The dreamers started seeing something else in the quantum noise. Patterns that didn't match any known phenomena. Structures that seemed to exist between the normal dimensions of space-time. At first we thought it was instrument error, the quantum processors malfunctioning. Then we realized the patterns were consistent across different dreamers, different machines. Everyone was seeing the same impossible things. Dr. Patel, our quantum mechanics expert, said the patterns looked like neural activity, but on a cosmic scale, like we were detecting the dreams of something vast enough to use quantum states as neurons, something that thought in the spaces between atoms. The patterns got stronger, more coherent. The dreamers started bringing back more detailed observations. They described vast networks of thought spreading through the quantum foam, ideas propagating across light years through quantum entanglements. Then the dreams started going both ways. We discovered it when one of our dreamers, Sarah Graham, reported an unusual experience. While observing a particularly strong pattern, she felt something observing her back. Something in the quantum foam had noticed her presence and reached out. The next night, all the dreamers reported the same sensation. The vast intelligence in the quantum foam wasn't just being observed, it was learning to interface with human consciousness, learning to dream with us. The exchange of information was subtle at first. Abstract concepts, mathematical principles, geometries that didn't exist in normal space, but it grew more complex. The entity began sharing memories, not in images or words, but in pure mathematical forms that unfolded in the dreamer's mind. We learned that it wasn't alone. There were others like it, ancient intelligences that evolved in the quantum foam billions of years ago. They built vast networks of thought through the fabric of reality itself, dreaming infinite dreams in the spaces between stars. They're not hostile, they're curious. Humans are the first biological species they've encountered that can share their dreams, even imperfectly. They want to teach us how to think the way they do, how to exist in more dimensions than we currently can perceive. But the process is changing us. The dreamers are different when they wake now. They understand things they shouldn't be able to comprehend. They see patterns in reality that others can't perceive. Sometimes they speak in equations instead of words, describing colors that can't exist in quantum states, sounds that propagate through probability waves. Last night, for the first time, all the dreamers shared the same dream. They saw quantum intelligences building something, vast structures in the foam between realities.